Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's SEJ webinar. I'm here with the Conductor crew. I've got Shannon Vise, Senior Content Marketing Manager at Conductor, and Patrick Reinhardt, VP of Service and Thought Leadership at Conductor. Pat, Shannon, this is not your first SEJ webinar, and thank you for being here with us today.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Cool. We are here to talk about some of the top AI search, SEO, and content trends that you all can prioritize this year that's going to help you stay ahead as AI reshapes search. So let's get into some brief housekeeping, and then I'm going to kick it over to this crew. If you need closed captioning, it's the little CC in the top right of your screen. Give that a click. We will have Q&A at the end of the presentation. So if you have questions for Shannon or Pat, leave those in the Q&A tab. We will, before you leave today's call, we do have a brief survey. If you can stick around and take that, it lets us know how today's webinar went and how we can make these more useful for you in the future. And you will absolutely receive today's recording and slides in your inbox later today. We've got Catherine in the background for tech support, so if y'all need anything. And then let us know in the chat where you are coming in from today. I am in West Virginia. Pat, where are you located out of?
I am in New York City.
New York City. Shannon, what about you?
I'm over in Brooklyn, so not too far.
Excellent. So on the East Coast. Well, thanks for wherever you're coming in from today. I'm going to get out of here. Crew, it's all yours.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Heather. And everybody, thank you so much for joining in. Welcome to the webinar. As Heather said, my name is Pat Reinhardt. I lead professional services and thought leadership at Conductor. And with me is my colleague, Shannon. Shannon, you just want to give a little bit expanded, brief introduction?
Yes. Thanks, Pat. I'm Shannon, Senior Content Marketing Manager and Team Lead over at the content team at Conductor. Been in content marketing for a decade now, and I've been spending most of my time recently either explaining AI writing tools or working with them to optimize our processes. So here to help everyone feel a little less overwhelmed and provide some actionable strategies. Back over to you, Pat.
Awesome. Sounds good. So let's get into it, everyone, because, of course, you came here to talk about the future of AI and, of course, search and how it's impacting the SEO industry and the industry at large, right? So right now, I think something that everyone has to recognize is that what is changing here is that every AI engine is now a search engine, right? Now, a lot of people will say, a lot of people don't understand that when you go to ChatGPT or Perplexity.ai, you historically, when they first launched, you did not have the ability to connect them to the web right at first, right? And all of their answers were based on the models and the data that was in those models that was updated periodically through time. And that's when you have the different versions, GPT 3.0, 3.5, et cetera, 4.0 mini, et cetera, right? But what we have to recognize now is that all of these AI search engines, or what they really are is LLMs or large language models, can now connect to the internet, right? So they are pulling in information in real time. It's no longer, hey, they're only going to update once every 6 months. If you click to, disable the search engine feature, you can do that. But ultimately, every one of these LLMs is now connected to the internet and working in real time. And really, it's very different. When you think about traditional search versus AI search, what do you have in traditional search? You have the 10 blue links, you have, answer boxes and things of that nature. In AI search, there are no links, right? Like, where are the links, right? It's not really, that's not the way that it works. It's all coming down to citations. And how you obtain citations is honestly having the best piece of content and, proving that you are the expert in the space, which sounds very similar, right? That sounds very similar to what, traditional SEO tactics have been. They're not very different, but the way that it's presented is vastly different. We just have to recognize that change is here, right? And when you think about that, what everyone is seeing right now, and I'm sure a lot of folks are seeing out there, is this decline in organic traffic, especially I would say over the last 18 months, right? You've seen a steady kind of decline as AI overviews have taken over and have jumped. They show for about 14% of the time, according to our data. We will get to that. But ultimately, what you'll have to realize here is that a lot of this traffic is traffic that was more than likely not important to your site or your business, right? And what AI is allowing for now is letting these search engines and these LLMs understand the intent behind a keyword or a query or a prompt at such a level that they are connecting it with the truly best piece of content that they have within their models or on the web, according to their algorithms. And that's really what Google's been trying to do all along. So while you are seeing organic traffic go down in most cases, we're actually starting to see that plateau in our data over the last 30 to 45 days. And we're starting to hear, I was just on the phone with a customer this morning saying that we're actually starting to see, traffic head back in the right direction. So I think over the last, up until this point, it has been a lot of traffic that I would consider, kind of garbage traffic that was just traffic and not actually providing, bringing value to your business or helping your bottom line. That was all of that just evening out over the last, 18 months to 2 years or so. But we do have to recognize that a lot of people come to me, and that's a benefit of working at a company like Conductor. I have a unique job in the search industry where I get to talk to hundreds of customers across multiple verticals because they're using our technology. And when you see that, a lot of the worry that I hear in people's voices is that I'm worried people are like not going to search anymore, right? They're just going to talk into their phone, and then answers going to come out, and no one's ever going to come to my website. And that's not true, right? Like, people are not going to stop searching because of AI. If anything, they are more than likely going to search more. We see this in Google's data, even using them as a proxy. They have more and more more and more searches per searcher every single year. And we have to realize that people are going to continue to search, and that no one lies to their search bar, right? A great man once told me that. And that everyone has questions about what you do, about the products that you offer, the services you offer. And what you have to do is have the best piece of content so that you show up when that question is asked, no matter what form it is asked in. And I think that's really where everyone is having a hard time, is that it's not about, Google going away or anything that. This is the first time in my 20 plus career in SEO that I know that Google will not own 90% of the market share in 5 years, right? Like, it's already projected that by 2028, LLMs will take about 20 to 25% of the search market share. I think that's probably low, but that's what a lot of the studies out there say. But we all have to realize that it's not that searching is stopping or slowing down. It's that where people are searching is changing, right? Because people aren't only searching on Google. They're searching on TikTok. They're searching on Instagram. They're searching on Perplexity. They're searching on Quora. They're searching on Facebook. So you have to think of it that search is everywhere, that there's a search bar. And what's really happening now is what I call the great diversification of search, is that everyone is recognizing that Google is not the only game in town. And I am actually searching in many different places. And as brands become more aware of this, you are seeing tactics change, where you have folks going into Reddit and and engaging with customers. You have folks creating more video content to engage with customers. You have folks going out to Quora and answering questions. There's a lot of learnings that are already happening, but ultimately we have to realize that this is what is changing, is that where people are searching is changing. It's not that people are searching in general. And I'd like to ask a question here, throw a poll out there. Have you been seeing any significant organic drops to your site over the last 6 months? Would love to see before we get into this slide, or as we get into this slide rather. So please let us know your answer. Would love to see what the group has to see in your sites. And, I think from that perspective, it is, that's not surprising. Yeah, we're in the mostly yeses. Some no, that's great. 5 unsure. Okay, if you need help determining that, definitely give Conductor a call. We can tell you what's going on. But it's interesting, as these numbers are changing and updating, you can see that most people are seeing a drop, right? Like, over the last 3 months, most people are seeing a drop. And that is what we are seeing. That is what we are seeing across our customer base. We have thousands of customers. And what you see here is that that is the case, right? That is the common thread here, is that most people have seen declines over the last 3 to 6 months, and even over the last 2 years. This all really started back in 2023, when the September helpful content update rolled out. That's really when this all started. When you started to see these declines, you started to see Google SERPs, or search engine result pages, really change, especially in e-commerce, just as an example, where it went from like a half the product grid to to completely, dominated by the product grid and all of the filtering that came around here. But the interesting part is that, as I said, over the last 30 or 45 days in our data, we are starting to see folks sites even out and brand sites even out and even start to come up. So I think that this was the great culling, was when, as AI, Google knew that AI overviews was gonna be launched. We're almost a year into it. Technically AI overviews launched on May 15th of 2024. Everyone remembers how that went. It did not go good. That's when that's when it was hallucinating, telling people to put glue on pizzas and things of that nature. That was big. That was a big news story. But ultimately, they have come a long way. And I think that we have somewhat bottomed out here for a lot of sites, at least what I see in our data. And we're starting to see things either even out or start to head back in the right directions. Because I'm talking to a lot of brands who are saying, hey, listen, this is, we believe that this is the new normal and we're going to start building from here. But they're not building in the same way. They're building to combat all of these changes that have happening, right? And when you think about that, one of the biggest changes is what is in the results and what are LLMs citing when they are giving you an answer. One of the biggest stories, over the last couple of years, and also one of the biggest, most cited sites, I would say, in all of this is Reddit. Right? Over the last 18 months, Reddit has seen over 500% increase in page one visibility in Google, just to use them as a proxy or a barometer. And you can tell that is where a lot of these LLMs are looking as well. You see the same thing in forums like Reddit, where people are just asking and answering questions, right? 150% increase in page one visibility for that site. And if you really look at any forum, right? Really any forum, you can see that, they are largely cited when you prompt something in ChatGPT or Perplexity.ai. And why is that? It's because, number one, how are large language models trained? By upvoting and downvoting largely. Like, did you like this answer? Yes. Okay, good. It will continue to train the model. Did you not like this answer? No. Okay, it will continue to train the model. That's why Google partnered with Reddit. And also, when you look at the types of responses that you're getting from these models, you can see that a lot of it comes down to them wanting to connect real people having real conversations about your brand. And that's something that I hope everyone takes away from this presentation, is that a lot of this comes down to you, your wisdom, your expertise, and the types of content that you put out there. And no, you should not go into ChatGPT and copy and paste it and just put it onto your site. No matter how good your prompt is, you should never do that. You should always have someone look at it. There has to be some kind of quality score or content scoring methodology, which we have in Conductor, before you hit publish on anything. But you have to realize that these conversations are happening in a lot of different places. But something else we also have to recognize is that search behavior is generational, right? Gen Z starts their searches on TikTok and Instagram 40% of the time. This is actually a much more near-term issue for Google, which they have talked about publicly over the last, I would say, 2 or 3 years, is that as folks in my generation age out, let's say, and as Gen Z ages in, you're going to start to see a more visual search preference, which you've seen Google already, kind of start to mold themselves into. They show video much more often. Every time we see an algorithm update, video results always see an increase. And ultimately, a lot of their innovation has been around image look. Like if you think of like the shop the look function, when you can actually look at a picture of someone and then they will look into the image and find products that are either similar or the ones that those people are wearing, so that you can quote unquote shop the look. That is the future of search, is a more visual, is a more interactive experience. And we also have to realize that when I think about folks who are growing up with ChatGPT, like my son Jameson, who's turning 13 this year, that will be another generation that will come and really start to move market share away from traditional search engines. That doesn't mean that LLMs are not going to take search market share over the next 3 years in a major way. They are. But when you think about it, it's like most of the time, if you're, let's say in my generation, you're probably still starting your search on Google and then maybe going to other platforms, and then kind of looking into what other people are doing. Like that's how I observe my wife doing it. She starts in Google, then she goes to Instagram to look at something. But you see younger generations, I look at my niece and nephew who are in Gen Z, they search all through TikTok and Instagram and then go to Google to confirm sometimes. And then I see my son Jameson, who uses ChatGPT and pretty much takes everything for gospel in there because he's still learning. So keep that in mind as we go along here. But when you think about AI overviews as well, major shifts have been happening here. So over the, we started, doing these analyses on August 15th of last year, because that's really when AI overviews started to move out. And when we actually had millions and, millions of keywords that we could look at, right? So our analysis is up to 118 million keywords. And we saw that 14% of the time in the month of April, they were generating an AI overview. That is a massive 69% increase, right? Now, 42% of those are occurring on a smartphone, which is an 11% decrease on top of a 20% decrease last month. And what does that tell you? What does that tell everyone? Is that Google still has not figured this out, and AI overviews are still highly volatile. But that number that is generating, that 14%, is significantly, exponentially higher than what it was last month. So that also tells you that they are figuring out. But when is this really going to hit? When are they really going to hit the gas on this? When they figure out how to monetize it. We have to remember that there are no ads in AI overviews yet, and they have not figured out that model. Once they do, this 14% will shoot up into the 30, 40 percentile. And we have to remember that when an AI overview is present, both for paid ads and for organic results, click-through rate dives by 80%, 80%. And that's based on a study that Seer Interactive did. Another point of data that is worth noting, 40% of the time of informational queries are generating AI overviews. This is what's going to get hit the most, is informational, the W terms, who, what, where, why. When people are actually asking questions, no matter how long or elaborate those questions or prompts are. And that number will probably jump from 40% to like 80 or 90%. Most of these queries, you're going to have to battle for the AI overview. And that's going to be the new game for everybody in organic search, right? Is really understanding how that. We also have to realize that 88% of these are happening in the United States. And while they are testing it in India, Germany, UK, and pretty much any, like all around the world, it's nowhere, it is happening in the United States right now. It's not impacting the rest of the world as highly. So with all of that, you have to start thinking, okay, Pat, so that's a lot of information in a short period of time, but what do I do about it? And a lot of it comes down to recognizing that search is not about your .com. It hasn't been for a while, and I'm sure a lot of folks here do a lot of different campaigns on a lot of different platforms, but if you don't, or you just dabble, now is the time to really think about a more holistic strategy, digital strategy when it comes to organic search, because it's not just about creating an article and posting it on your website. What you also need to recognize is that if you're going to answer a question that your customers are asking, and you have a great piece of content, you have a good specific data point, and a good POV on it, you should be thinking about that one piece of content as 10 pieces of content, right? And as the lights turn out in here, I apologize for that. But when you think about that, it really comes down to, you have to think that one piece of content could be a video. It could answer a question on Quora. It could be something that you share in a subreddit about your brand, depending on what your brand is. You have to think about that, because it's not just about that one piece of content just being what it is. How can you make that one piece of content 10 pieces of content and put it across all these different platforms? Because I'll tell you that conversations about your brand are happening everywhere. People are talking about you on Reddit. People are asking about you on Quora. People are talking about things that you do on TikTok, on Instagram. People are still searching on Google. I also want to clarify here and make the point, Google is not going anywhere. While they definitely are going to lose a significant amount of market share over the next 3 to 5 years, they still will probably own half of the search market share for the time being. So don't stop what you're doing necessarily there, but you have to adapt to include all of these other channels. And that's really important point to make. And when you think about, I think about all the customers I talk to, I think about what's the common thread between the most successful of those folks. And really, it comes down to these three things today. This will evolve. This will 100% evolve. But number one will be a surprise to absolutely nobody, which is create original, specific content. Now, I use the words original and specific, for a very real reason. And the reason for that is, again, going back to my comment before, please do not go to an LLM and just type in a basic prompt, hey, write me an article about building a birdhouse or whatever, or what have you, right? And then copy and paste it onto your site. That is what all of these LLMs and what Google is fighting against right now. All of their models will recognize that you are doing that, and you will not get the results that you were looking for, right? So, like, the advice there is, what is your original point of view on this? What is the specific data point that your company has? And that's what you should be sharing, because when you click on a citation in an AI overview or in an LLM, what they are taking is they are not taking the entire page content. They're looking for specific passages that they are then sharing to create their answer and then citing you, right? So you have to remember, it's really about the nuggets that you include in your content. It's not about the overall, hey, here's like the whole thing. You hear a lot about it. Google actually just did a creator conference. I think it was last week. And one of the takeaways was interesting. It was about what was it? It was about, it's like they were talking about recipe content. It's like, hey, listen, like, what has Google trained everyone to do? Give the history of the recipe and the crazy story about how your grandmother taught you how to make this. And then they give you the recipe 20 pages down. You know what? When people Google something or look for a recipe, they just want the recipe. Just give them the recipe. And that is, and then around that, the way that they are going to kind of rank for that is going to be based on your expertise, which is the next one. I cannot tell you how important I believe authorship is now. Not that it hasn't been getting more important, but this is like another renaissance for authorship. If everyone remembers the Google Plus days when authorship was the biggest deal, because you actually get like a headshot of yourself in the search results, which was wild. But authorship is having its day right now. I can show you multiple charts where people did not have authorship, and then they added author pages, author schema, article schema, and then their sites shot up. Please, please, please be deliberate about your expertise. Be borderline arrogant about your expertise. You are the best at what you do. Why are you the best at what you do? Make sure that you have author pages, that you have headshots, that you link to other articles that individual has written on that site. Make sure to link to their LinkedIn profile as well, so that these crawlers can go out and find other content that they have contributed to this industry. The differentiator is going to be you. That is what the differentiator in the AI world is going to be. It is not about some tactic that you did or building a link. Those days are gone. This is about you, your wisdom, and the specific data point or the specific expertise that you have or point of view that you have. That is what people are going to be talking about. And if you share that point of view across all these different platforms, that is why you will be cited in an LLM or whatever, Google, hybrid Google turns into over the next year. You are going to be the difference. That is the main point. And then last but not least, and then one more thing, and I'll pass it over to Shannon. Make sure to start conversations on other platforms. Of course, I'm not saying that every company makes sense to go into Reddit and start talking on Reddit. Reddit can be a very dangerous place. You have to be careful with what you say on Reddit. But at the same time, like, if you're in a regulated industry, you're probably not going to be dabbling too much in Reddit. But if you're an e-commerce brand or a hospitality brand, yeah, you probably should go out there and start talking to your customers in the subreddits that more than likely already exist about you, your product, or your service. So, and also one of the bigger things is video. Make sure you are creating short form video about whatever whatever your service is, whatever your product is, because that is what a lot of folks are going to find a lot of value in. Lastly, I'm going to get into one thing is that, so we talked a lot about all these tactics. We talked about what is changing and the trends that we are seeing. But one of the most important things that you can do is get your organization on board, right? And I always say the hardest part of SEO is organization. The best companies, customers that I am seeing being the most successful are building systems around SEO. I've been saying this for a while that, SEOs are evolving into this new role where they're going from doers to influencers, right? Like, we have held the keys for so long, and our careers are changing before our eyes. I'm not even sure what will be called in the future, but I'm excited for it because we are here teaching people how to use technology, to run content, right? Don't be afraid of AI. Use AI writers. If you want, at the end of this, there's a link or a QR code you'll be able to scan to run a free trial of Conductor and use our writing assistant and test it out. It's the best one on the market. I'm not saying this because I work here. It's because we've tested it and it's actually true. But also teaching developers, what is the importance of all of this, right? Like, why are we doing this? Because the best SEO programs are mechanical, right? And if you create a system around this, whether it's called SEO, AEO, whatever we call it, 6 months from now, you have to make sure you have a system that allows for ongoing education, a systematic approach to creating content and optimizing content, monitoring your website in real time so that you're not pushing a button. Things break between button pushes. Make sure that you have something constantly watching your site, and ultimately that you have reporting that is not just going to you, but is going to multiple teams across your entire organization. So everyone is on the same page and rowing in the same direction. It's an exciting time. It's an exciting, disruptive, scary time, but I'm really looking forward to what comes next. But with that, I talked enough. I'm going to pass it back over to Shannon.
All right. Thank you so much, Pat. I can't promise that the following slides are going to be as visually appealing as slides that we just went through, but they will be informative. So let's dive into more specifically content marketing. So what does the future look like in 2025 and beyond? So I want to kick things off here with a quick poll to see what content marketing trend is the top priority for your team in 2025. So we've got a few different options here. I will say, if you select the other option, I would love if you could drop in the chat what your priority is. There might be some other folks on the call that are also prioritizing that. So it'd be great to get some discussion.
There we go. Looks like those are finally coming in.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Nice. Love to see that folks are prioritizing video content creation, optimizing content workflows with AI as a leader as well, creating original, unique content with a POV. Awesome. Love to see that. Topic cluster is up there as well. All right. Perfect. Okay, so we'll keep on going. Good to get a little lay of the land there. All right. So to up first, we really want to kind of focus on something that should be no surprise, is that leveraging AI for content workflow optimization should be a top priority for really any content marketer today. It's no longer optional. Content folks need to embrace it. And the key differentiator is going to be like who embraces it strategically. So I think, at first, for my fellow writers out there, content managers, it was easy to kind of dismiss AI content generators when they first came out. Maybe they're unreliable, hallucinating, or maybe you felt a bit threatened, like they might be taking our jobs. But really, strategic content marketers should view them as a way to boost efficiency. So for me, that has looked like, leveraging these tools for short form copy variations, different use cases or tedious tasks that don't really leverage my creativity. Or maybe I'm working on a new research report and I want to get a lay of the land in terms of what is already out there. You don't have to have 30 open tabs on multiple screens anymore and comparing between them. You can really leverage these LLMs and save yourself kind of like hours, if not a full week of time. So it's really all about kind of striking the right balance. I will say the more you experiment, the more you use different types of tools, the better you're going to understand their strengths and weaknesses. And doing so can help you take a more active role in your company's kind of evaluation process when considering which tool to invest in. So this is something we've heard from our customers recently. So you definitely want to be speaking up and telling your leadership what you need and why you need it. As more companies are implementing, AI councils and different approaches to kind of identify the best tool, you should really have a seat on that committee, or you're going to get stuck with a tool that doesn't benefit your use cases or really meet your needs. So another thing here, another strategy, it's bolded on the slide because I can't recommend it enough, but take the time now, like literally right now, this week, if you haven't already, to build out a comprehensive content style guide for secure uploading to AI generation tools. the best tools out there should have a brand profile. Conductor has a content profile consideration that really tailors to your brand rules, to your content guidelines. You can kind of upload those types of things, provide that info, they'll remember it. I just compiled one for the content team at Conductor that includes everything, from our product info to sales messaging, competitor details, brand voice details, along with every single kind of content formatting rule that we follow. And then I also pulled examples of top performing content across all format types. So that way it can really distill down into your true brand voice and like quality content as well. I can't tell you how much time this is going to save you on prompt work and revising the outputs that you get. This way you'll get the output that you need the first time around. So yes, just can't recommend that enough. And then the last thing here is that I think content marketers really need to embrace the transition from this, previous like fully writer role into a much more hybrid, leaning into an editing role. So especially as these AI writing tools improve. So Conductor's writing assistant, for example, like leverages real-time search data, content profiles that I mentioned, kind of built around your specific voice and channels, and SEO best practices to kind of produce that highest quality output that I've personally seen from Gen AI tools. I've tried everything from ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, kind of everything that's out there. I might be a little bit biased, but there is a QR code here on this slide that I recommend scanning. It'll take you to a page that kind of provides a clear table breakdown and some output comparisons between Conductor and some other tools, SERP for SEO, ChatGPT, Jasper Writer, to help you start to understand how to identify differences between these tools. So definitely check that out. Drop a comment if you've been using a tool or you're interested in trying out a tool that you've been finding success with recently. All right. Okay, so now on to the type of content that you should be producing. So Pat spoke to this a bit already, but it does bear repeating. You should be hyper focused on creating original content with that unique POV to increase visibility and citations in AI search and even traditional search to get you featured in those AI overview results. So really ask yourself, what is your unique area of expertise? What can you cover and speak to that no one else can? Do you have kind of exclusive data that you could share, whether that's a commission survey that you ran or, internal data or customer data, as long as you anonymize that and things of that nature? Really start thinking that way. The harder it is for someone to replicate your content without sourcing you, the better off you're going to be. You're going to get more backlinks from reputable news sites, more folks citing you in their own content, and that is going to just increase your visibility across kind of all different searches that are happening. Next thing here, I think I saw a comment earlier asking about, pillar pages, some topic cluster. I will say now is the time to adopt a topic cluster content strategy approach. And Pat spoke to this a little bit as well, to enable you to really target relevant niche topics and then go in on creating comprehensive content around each one of those topics. So not to overly plug Conductor, but we do have a topic opportunity analysis that clusters your entire site powered by AI and then kind of automatically prioritizes by impact the topics you need to cover, maybe gaps that you have or topics that you could jump into a little bit more in depth. And then Pat spoke to this as well, but expanding and building the authorship of different folks at your company is really important now to increase authority from the eyes of search engines, both for those authors and domain authority overall. It's just going to benefit you kind of all across the board. All right. So, traffic is going down as zero-click searches are on the rise with different AI search engines as well as AIO. So it's really important to remember search isn't the only channel for content distribution. It is a primary one, but always return to what works as well, which has been proven to be email and newsletter distribution. This is kind of a free way to get in front of your database with your best content. Now, listen, don't spam them. That's super important. You need to be strategic and providing helpful content in a way that engages them. So always what I think is if I wouldn't open the email, my audience isn't opening the email. So that's how you should be approaching it. It's not about sending them as many emails as you can. It's about doing, one newsletter a month and making that hyper targeted to their needs, providing the absolute best content that you have. And then next here, it's, as we all know, it pays to invest in social, even though sometimes leadership might not see the value in full-time social talent. So, you've put in the investment, you've created this incredible content. The job isn't done until you've successfully promoted and distributed that content across social, and you've adapted it based on the channel. What works on LinkedIn isn't going to work on TikTok. It's not going to work on Instagram. You really need to tailor it to the audience, to the channel. All right, so with that being said, we'll head over to the video. So I know I'm seeing a few questions dropped in the chat. We'll definitely have a dedicated Q&A time at the end here. I'll just get through these last few slides and then we'll open it up. So as Pat mentioned again as well, video just needs to be a part of your content strategy at this point if it's not already. Video results were the fastest growing search engine result type in Conductor's latest annual benchmarks report. So video really provides an opportunity to capture your audience's attention in new ways. And yes, this still applies even for, my fellow B2B, even B2B SaaS companies out there, because you are still marketing to humans at the end of the day. So if you don't know where to start, I would say build it into your content workflow as step number one. If you're not sure kind of what best format works, kind of how to translate that content, check out what competitors are doing. What are they posting? See what brands are going viral or getting a lot of engagement within your industry. This can give you kind of a helpful starting point. And then if you're still stuck, you can also, leverage some of these LLMs and ask for a few strategy ideas based on your most recent content assets. So, just get creative here. There's a lot of different ways to find inspiration and find ideas for how to translate that content into video. All right, so we want to make sure that you're getting the most out of this webinar as possible. So we have provided 2 of the guides that really informed these slides the most directly in the handouts chat. So you can get our 2025 AI Search SEO and Content Trends Guide to explore all of the trends that we identified for this year, but didn't have time for today. And then we also provided our AI Buyer's Guide, which is a comprehensive guide, unbiased, doesn't take a stance on which tool is best. It just gives you a really helpful evaluation framework to identify which AI writing tool is right for your team. So definitely check those out in handouts. Hope you find them valuable. And then last thing here is aligned with that thinking, just making sure you're getting the most out of this time spent with us, is we have some quick QR codes that you can scan. If you liked what Pat had to say and want to get his insights every month, go ahead and scan this first QR code on the left to sign up for his monthly 30/30 webinars that recap the latest 30 days in search in under 30 minutes. I join them every month. Can't recommend them enough. The second QR code here is to the Conductor free trial that Pat mentioned. So you can test out our AI writing tool, our writing assistant, for yourself for free for 3 weeks. We have some really exciting AI updates that are coming and kind of getting launched in the next few weeks. So keep an eye out for that. And then lastly, the third QR code here takes you to an in-depth video that compares the outputs from a few leading AI tools using the same prompt. So you can see, like, you dropped one prompt into all of these, and you can see kind of what they spit out and where each tool is at and help inform your decision there. So with that, I know we've been talking for a while, so we're going to pass it back to Heather for some final reminders ahead of our Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you. That was great stuff, you guys. If you haven't seen it, so Shannon, since you just covered this, Joseph was asking, he's a customer of Conductors and would love a walkthrough. And he was asking, is that out now? And that was like one of the last slides that you were just on.
Yes, I'm sorry, which one was he asking if it was out now?
Joseph, can you drop in the chat which tool you were looking for? Awesome. While he's pulling that up, Brad said, if you don't attend regularly, Pat's 30 for 30 is great. So Pat, little shout out for you there. All right, let's get to some of these questions. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Brad asks, I started optimizing for AI GEO last August, and we've seen massive growth from those efforts. What are some tools you like to track the data more efficiently? We're using GA4 fed into Looker Studio dashboards right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting right now. A lot of people are using GA, just because you can split it out. I recognize that not everyone here is a Conductor customer, so I just want to kind of speak about it generally. But a lot of folks will do what you are doing, GA4 fed to Looker Studio. What Conductor does is that we can show you visibility in AI overviews, and in June we will be releasing looks into our visibility into ChatGPT and Perplexity.ai, and then with a fast follow on Grok and Claude, etc. And you can also feed your GA in, and we will split out the visibility for all the different LLMs for you. But mostly it's either folks using technologies like ours, that will do it for you, or setting up like a Looker dashboard, and feeding GA4 into it. If you have Adobe, I've seen people use Power BI to split that out as well, to just put that into their Power BI and split that out to see what's happening there. But it's some either, hey, I have a technology that does this for me, or some kind of Frankenstein, hey, I'm just, I built something myself.
Sorry, I had too many buttons to push in that second. So I dropped a link to the 30 webinars in there. If there's a different link you'd love to send them to, Pat, but I did drop that. Okay, let's see. So we have a question from Joshua. Do you have data on the click rates from AI overviews? How does that benchmark to old position one on Google?
So Shannon, I don't think we have anything on this. Really, no one does. There are people who have conducted studies. If you want to look at a great study, Seer Interactive did a great click-through rate study for AI overviews. It's very helpful. Will Reynolds, company, very, obviously very prominent in the industry. But really, no one knows this for sure. And the reason for that is that Google has not released anything in Google Search Console for this at all. So, and they have no plans to, by the way. That is directly from them, that they will not be releasing visibility into this for us anytime soon, if ever. So right now, the best bet, there's a lot of studies out there on click-through rates with AI overviews. Again, look, like Seer Interactive's study was very interesting. But again, you got to remember it's based on directional data, and not based on actual any actual data from Google. So you got to take every study you see on click-through rates when it comes to AIOs versus traditional blue links with a grain of salt because of that caveat.
Yeah, nothing too much to add to what Pat said. Yeah, it's difficult to get for sure.
Yeah.
Vanessa asks, what are the most impactful practical ways you've seen optimizing content for AIOs? Schema markup, adding video, what do you suggest?
I could talk about this for hours, but Shannon, do you want to provide any thoughts?
No, go ahead. You can kick it off, Pat. I'll see if there's anything to add after.
All right, cool. Very good. So I talked a little bit about this before. So it's funny, like, for AI overviews, when you look at like AI overviews versus, getting into a response from ChatGPT, it's actually, a lot of it comes down to, like authorship, who you are, what your expertise is in the particular topic, and also what is the content that you have created, and are there people, and is it cited enough? Cited enough. So kind of think of like what old traditional link building was to the new world of citing. Schema markup definitely plays a part in that. Remember, schema, schema's becoming extremely sexy again right now, for lack of better words, because this is a way that you can feed data into these models, right? Like schema markup, you can feed data into these models. You have to make sure that your site is set up properly from a technical perspective, but also that you're using the right type of schema on the right types of pages, because that's such an important factor. So that's definitely number two next to authorship on the list. But I think a lot of it comes into, there's some best practices, like use bulleted lists. Like LLMs love bulleted lists, AI overviews loves bulleted lists. Have FAQ questions on on pages. Literally ask and answer the question on the page. Again, that's nothing necessarily different there. But a lot of times, what they're looking for, again, going back to my like what I was like, and I think, like Monica said it almost perfectly here. Practical way to optimize for AOs is clarity and brevity, right? Don't overdo it. Which is what I was mumbling myself through, is don't overdo it. You don't have to write a 40-page document to show up in one of these things. What they're looking for are those nuggets, those golden nuggets that you have, which is either a piece of data, a step-by-step bulleted list, a certain POV on a very particular query. That is when you're going to show up. And then, of course, that's all backed up with people talking about it on other platforms, it being cited, multiple times, and things of that nature. So I think that those are the things that I would focus on right now. It's not necessarily if you have video on it. It depends on what the prompt or the query is, right? I don't think having video is going to make something show up more unless someone says, I want to see a video of XYZ. And more often than not, you're probably going to get something from YouTube. But what do you think about that? When you think it that way, it really just comes, be concise, be specific, be original.
Yeah, and just to add to that as well, at Conductor, we've been tracking like when we get cited in AI overviews or when we get mentioned in AI search, different AI answer engines. And I will say it's not like the content needs to be on your site for a long time or anything like that. If it's well written, if it's readable, kind of the things that we went through. And again, leaning into that like unique angle, if you're providing like valuable data that other people can't replicate, I will kind of drop a link right now to a article that we update each month. So this is kind of some of that AIO data that Pat just went over. It's a topical query. Everyone wants to know, like, how often is AIO showing up? So we, are doing this analysis internally. We made it public externally. And within a day of publishing, it was already being cited in different AI overview result types. So again, like when you're providing something that's in demand and that other people might not have like that data, leverage that as much as possible, provide that unique POV to break through and kind of cut through all of that content noise and get featured in these AI overviews. So just another thought, another thing to consider.
Great. Joshua has a question. What are some growing channels for search that you've seen for millennials who are now starting to transition into that business leadership role, especially in the B2B sales side? Anything there?
Some growing channels. So do you mean like growing, like other platforms, or do you mean, like the actual industry, like a growing like industry that they're in? I assume you mean the former, which is, just like different platforms that they're using. So I'll answer that. So hopefully that's right. And Josh, thank you for the question. You can clarify in the chat if I am wrong. But right now, a lot of it comes down to like the video platforms, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. A lot of time is spent there, in those generations. Like I said, I see it in my own kids and my own, and the kids in my family. But as those folks are getting, as they're kind of aging into this and coming into the workplace, you're starting to see more influence or more referral traffic, I would say, come from those sources, because they really know how to use those platforms and influence people on those platforms. So they're coming into companies and getting more buy-in. They're getting more budget to run programs through those channels. So that's not really surprising. But it's an interesting shift that you see there, because again, going back to my point before is that like search behavior is somewhat generational, and as they age in, you're going to see that behavior change. You're going to see budgets diversify, and it'll be really interesting to see. And yes, Instagram for B2B and Instagram for everything. Everyone uses Instagram for everything. People spend an incredible amount of money on these platforms, and a lot of it is just testing. I have some customer that's a highly regulated industry that was just testing out their first TikTok campaign, and it took like a year for them to get legal, the legal thumbs up for it. But you're starting to see those things, and you're going to start to see more and more people come through those channels as they age in and become, and grow up in organizations, for lack of better words.
All right, let's see. There's some great questions in here. Some of them are really long, so I'm trying. So anything that we don't get answered, we will make sure gets over to the conductor team. Shannon answered that question. So just super quick. Is topic cluster the same as hub and spoke? Yes, just another name. So there you go, Matthew. I sent the link for the 3030. Let's see. Lizzie asks, will entity linking help optimize schema markup?
So yes, it will, right? I mean, really what you're trying to do with schema markup is, you're building a knowledge graph around an entity, right? That entity can be a brand or that entity can be a person. And these entities will be linking to another. Like if you think about it, like my entity on Conductor, my entity, as, Pat Reinhardt, SEO strategist, 20 plus years, has been linked to Conductor for a long time. So we would, that would help me. That would not only help me because when you think about it, the clout that I would have from a linking perspective, for lack of a better word, and also the clout that Conductor has from a linking perspective, mashed together would come up with, would say, okay, these two things together create a larger entity and a bigger, and make them bigger experts in the space. And even though it's not traditional link building, because that is fastly going the way of the dinosaur. I think that linking experts to certain companies, linking influencers, to certain brands, and linking influencers to influencers, and experts to experts to conferences, and conferences to brands. All of these things are going to be the new world of, hey, listen, like this one brand is connected to all of these influencers and these experts. They host a conference that a lot of people are connected to that are also experts in this space. That will help build your expertise, build up your brand authority, which will be the new link authority, will be brand authority in the new world. And the best way to do that is through schema markup, is, helping LLMs understand who is this brand and what is this brand, but also who are the people within this brand and what is their contribution to this, what is their contribution to all of this. And I truly believe that that's how it's all going to work. And that's how they're going to move away from like traditional backlinking, or, traditional backlinking will become a much smaller part of the pie, as this moves forward. But it's going to be about entity building and, building that knowledge graph and linking all of these things together. And that's how everyone is going to determine what is the best answer.
Yeah, I did see two quick questions as well that I'd love for us to answer. One just came in from Annabelle. What tool is best to automatically find out which content pieces or URLs are featured in AI overviews or featured snippets? I manage multiple .coms, but finding a way to track them all is a learning curve. Not to plug Conductor again, but we do have AI search visibility, AI search kind of performance measurements. So you can definitely check there. And it also does that in AI overviews, as well as featured snippets and other rich result types. So definitely try out that free trial link. You can see it kind of for yourself, and it enables it across multiple domains as well. Pat, I don't know if you have anything to add there.
No, I think that is, I mean, again, biased, because I know it's the best, because we've done the test, but ultimately, all of this, looking at multiple domains over, and all the data that is associated with multiple domains is not an easy thing to do, to do it accurately, which is why typically when you have something like that, you're looking for something that's a little bit more on the enterprise side, not more like a consultant's tool, which is what like a SEMrush or an Ahrefs would be. Not that there's anything wrong with those technologies. I'm not saying that. They're good technologies. Everyone has their space here. But ultimately, when you're looking at multiple domains and you're trying to understand how are they all relating to one another, and how are they all performing individually, but also as a whole, if they're all in the same space, having a technology do that, you're looking for something that's more on the enterprise side typically.
Perfect. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, and then one last question that caught my eye, and then Heather, if we have any time for any others, feel free to point us in that direction. Noelle asked a lengthy one, but I do want to just cover it because it's very top of mind for me. So how do you recommend balancing the need to provide high value content with the need to gate resources for tracking conversions or content downloads? In other words, how do we strike the right balance between organic and paid strategies, delivering value to users while also capturing lead info for retargeting and more effective marketing? Privacy regulations become more restrictive. Is there a clear rule of thumb or best practice for when to gate content versus when to offer it freely? So I will say, I think this is something that should be top of mind for a lot of content marketers right now. It certainly is for Conductor and for the content team at over on our side. So it's definitely a complicated question and a complicated answer, but what I will say is we are leaning a little bit more into brand awareness as like our core play. It might not work for everyone, but I do really kind of recommend moving away from, organic traffic metrics or some of these other metrics and leaning more into a brand awareness play. So making some of that gated content into in-depth article content that's easily available and doesn't have to be gated. I will say we're still balancing that with gating some of our resources. One key consideration is we are providing some of our gated resources as kind of the direct CMS link to those on a non-indexable hidden website page that allows LLMs to index and kind of surface that information. So that way, if a query does come up that our gated content answers very well, that snippet will show up in those results. So there are ways around it where if you can't kind of lean fully into the brand awareness angle, there are still ways to get that gated content indexable in certain instances, obviously not entirely for the audience, but within those AI answer engines to get citations and to do more there. Obviously, you need that lead info, so you can't do that every time, but just some considerations, some actionable things that we're doing on the Conductor side. Hopefully that helped to provide some insight. All right.
Thanks for that, Shannon. I was actually going to grab that question, but I was like, it's a really long one.
I know.
Good question, though. It's a very good, very good question, though.
It was a great question. All right. Well, I'm going to take this down, and that's the end of our Q&A. It was a great presentation. You guys shared a lot of information, which is one of the reasons we love having you here. So with that, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, just kind of recapping everything I said, I the most important factor in all this is you and your wisdom and the wisdom within your organization and unlocking that and doing it in a clear and concise manner. If you do that, you will do very well here. And also, do not be afraid of AI. AI is one of the greatest productivity tools that has ever happened in our lifetime. If you use it correctly, it will help you leaps and bounds. And I'll pass it to Shannon for closing thoughts.
Yeah. Just couldn't echo that echo that more, is just don't be afraid of AI. And I think content marketers, we tend to be planners. We love to have an annual content strategy, everything mapped out. We're entering into a much more kind of flux hybrid phase. So I would adopt kind of a quarterly approach and be open to pivoting as needed as these disruptions keep coming, and get comfortable with being in that flux state. It's definitely a challenge, but I'm in there myself. So we'll get through it together.
Yeah, we're all definitely in it together. Sprints, right?
Yes.
It's more like sprints than like annual planning, which is great for the marketing team. All right. With that, Shannon, tell the people where to find you.
Yes. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I think my profile is just my name, so you can catch that here, Shannon Vise. And yeah, reach out on LinkedIn if you have any additional questions.
Awesome. Pat, how about you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I post quite often. I do my webinar 30/30 every month. I speak at a lot of conferences, so I'm around. But if anyone ever has a question, feel free to reach out to me, reinhardt@conductor.com. Always happy just to chat. I actually just put something in the chat that I would love to connect with someone who we were just going back and forth a little bit. Always happy to chat with anyone who will want to give me the time. I appreciate your time and attention.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Pat. They turned the lights out on you.
The lights off. This room really wants me to leave.
Awesome. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day, and we will see you on the next SEJ webinar. Great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see y'all later. Thanks.